for what's to come during the show. If I'm sitting on this side, probably means Andrew Houghton, our producer, is going to be rocking out with us a little bit, and that's the case. We're going to do both the lead segment here in the 4 o'clock hour and the lead segment in the 5 o'clock hour together about all things Grizz, Bobcat, and Big Sky Conference football. The rest of Tuesday's show here today on Nuanez Now, get you caught up on all the action from across the state in prep football. We got some scores for you. We also got our Treasure State Stars for the week. We got some free Taglieri Delicatessen. By the way, if you want to win that or you want to be a part of the show, 888-1029. That's 888-1029. You can call that here in about 45 minutes, and we're going to give you a chance to win some Taglieri Deli. Also, though, you want to be a part of the show, call or text that number. Any comments, questions, feedback, analysis, you want to be a part of the conversation, 406-888-1029. And you can certainly call, but it seems like everybody out there is a little more comfortable with the text, so that's fine. And it's convenient for me, too, because I can just get through the ins and outs and then get to your texts and weave them in and make this, the beautiful radio show that I want it to be. If you're not listening on the radio or watching on TV, you can find us online. You can stream the show or ESPN radio in general, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Just go to 1029ESPN.com. You can also find our podcast. That's where it lives. All of our different podcasts live there. You can also check us out on YouTube. Right now, we're broadcasting through the Northwest Motorsports Studio. You can see that on either SWX Montana television or on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. That's going to help get you eligible for our fall giveaway. We're going to give you more details on that in a minute and then throughout the rest of the show as well. But the Nuanez Now YouTube, you can see us there as well. And one other thing we're going to get to today, which is actually probably me burying the lead because this is probably the most interesting and thing of note in this show. Latest episode of Grizz Greats is out with one of the all-time greats, one of the all-time fan favorites, the man they called Johanse Humphrey, joined me last week. We rolled this out actually late last week, but we're going to play you an excerpt of it today, and you can find that full podcast, grizzgreats.com, or just by searching Grizz Greats on all your various podcast hosting outlets. I say this a lot, but I think it's just worth repeating, man. I love the things that we do, the way I can be involved in the sporting world in a variety of capacities, whether it's doing this show or as a writer or whatever. But two different notes to make. First of all, I was invited to go back on the Grizz Fan Pod, which was very fun and very cool. So if you want to go check that out, I know that we are giving you so many podcasts to listen to. So hopefully you're into it. Hopefully you're into podcasts. But anybody that is interested, go check that one out. As well as, I should say, Grizz Greats and Nuanez Now and the Big Sky Breakdown and everything in between. But also worth noting that Grizz Greats has just been so fun. Because 2001, I was in 8th grade. It was starting to be towards the building, the really peak of my interest in college football, my fandom for both the Grizzlies and the Big Sky Conference. And I remember that 2001 team very well. I remember looking up to those guys at a very high level. So, now to call some of them like Dylan McFarland, Brett Staninger friends, and then to get to reconnect with guys like Johanse Humphrey and Atu Molden and Johnny Edwards, it's very cool for me. It's a thrill. It really is. It's it's funny because when you put it in perspective now, we're not very far apart in age. We're very similar in age demographic. Like I saw Dylan McFarland at the Guns N' Roses concert. We hung out, had a beer, whatever. And it's just, it's funny, though, because we're like peers now, but when they were in college, they seem so much older than when I was just an 8th grader, and I just idolized these guys. So very cool. I told Atu Molden that it's almost as if they had a hand, at least, in sort of setting the stage for the rest of my life, because some of those highly successful Grizz teams, when I was at a formative and also influenceable age, those guys definitely ignited my love of college football, ignited my love of the Big Sky Conference, and here I am now 20 years later, and I've chosen it as a career. So I was telling Joe Humphrey, man, like, this is like talking to Michael Jordan if I was 14 years old talking to you, but it was very cool to then just relate to him on a man-to-man level and rehash some memories. So you can find all those podcasts. Right now, I think we have John Edwards, the quarterback, Vince Huntsberger, All-American safety, Dylan McFarland, All-American offensive lineman, Yo Humphrey, All-American running back, and Atu Molden, All-American wide receiver. up and going. I'm also going to catch up with Joe Glenn, the head coach from Montana during that 2001 national championship season, and John Casper, the Missoulian beat writer at the time, who's now senior athletic director, I guess a senior administrator, senior deputy commissioner at the Big Sky Conference. He's going to join me later on this week as well, so look forward to all of that. It's Nuanez now on ESPN Radio and SWX Montana Television. I am Colter Nuanez. So now, let's dive into some analysis of the Grizzlies, the Bobcats, and then we'll also get around to Big Sky Conference power rankings and take you all the way around the Big Sky for the weekend that was as well. Andrew Houghton, our producer, will join me here in just a minute. But this conversation is brought to you by Nick Tabor and Westpac Wealth. Nick Tabor, Westpac Wealth, specialize in making your life more tax efficient. If you need a business succession plan, and trust me, if you own a business, a small business, a big business, any sort of business, you want a business succession plan. You know, God forbid that you pass away early, you want to have that ironed out for your loved ones. But more importantly, if you're just going to retire, if you want to retire and you want your business to continue to thrive, you're going to need a business succession plan. So Nick Tabor, the guys at Westpac Wealth, awesome for you. Westpac Wealth, making your life more tax efficient. Andrew, before we get to Grizz football, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we have to acknowledge it because it is the headline in sports today, and it will continue to be until this guy stops acting a fool. Ben Simmons, Philadelphia 76ers. I have a hard time calling him superstar at this point because he's just the king clown at this exact moment, but the guy signs a contract that would make most of our grandmothers weep, and then he decides that he's not going to show up to work for quite some time, and he ends up losing about $8.3 million of that contract. They said they put it in an escrow account. I don't even know what that means. I don't know if he could possibly get it back, but the broad nature of it is that this dude is just flushing his money down the toilet, and also, though, he doesn't seem to care. He's trying to win this power battle with the 76ers to maybe get traded. Today, he showed up in sweatpants to practice, proceeded to then practice with his cell phone in his pocket. I can't even believe it. They asked Joel Embiid afterwards, and Embiid has actually been sort of political about this, even though that there's been all these rumblings they don't get along. And Embiid, in his deadpan, very accented way, he said, "To be honest, I do not care about this man anymore." Pretty strong. I don't know. I just think that I just can't believe that we've reached this point with Ben Simmons, but also I can because it just seems as if this is the clown show he's made his life into.
When you think this story can't get any crazier, it gets crazier. These last couple days, it was like, well, Ben Simmons is outside the facility. This was last week. Nobody on the 76ers knows about this until he got Elton Brand, the GM of the Sixers, gets a test saying Ben needs to get into the building to take his COVID test. He wants to be back with the team. Well, really, he wants his money back. He wants to stop losing money. That worked out for about 2 days. Today, Doc Rivers basically told him to go home after he didn't want to do a defensive drill in practice. Ben Simmons, I guess, is going to get what he wants because this is just an untenable situation. He's not going to be there for very much longer, I don't think. I think Daryl Morey, although he's saying in the media still that he's not going to take a bad offer for Ben Simmons. He's holding out until there's a superstar available. Who that might be sometime in the future, we don't know. Is Damian Lillard going to be available? Is Brad Beal going to be available at one point?
Oh, man. If the Blazers trade Damian Lillard for Ben Simmons, oh, my.
I don't think that's a viable trade offer. I think Daryl Morey's going to have to back off of this, and Ben Simmons is going to get what he wants at this point. There's no way he's not going to be out of Philadelphia, and we'll see what they get for him. They try to trade him for Kyrie Irving, which is the other big story in the NBA right now. I don't know. Do they take a couple role players and draft picks for him? We'll see. This story is just getting crazier and crazier. Like you said, people on Twitter just analyzing the pictures of him at practice the first day he was practicing with them. He had a cell phone in his pocket, man.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's unbelievable. I agree he's going to get what he wants. I think it's crazy that there's a stance out there. There's people making takes, and there's also people from there's NBA analysts and stuff that are saying that maybe he doesn't get what he wants and he's going to play for Philadelphia this year. I just cannot imagine how that's going to happen.
Especially in Philadelphia.
Right. I mean, Coach Marty Warningweg and I were teasing about that, too. We were teasing about how the whole Aaron Rodgers saga this last offseason and the sort of not offensive is the wrong word, but rude things he said about Wisconsin being a non-vacation destination and nobody wants to move to Green Bay, blah, blah, blah. Like Coach Barty was saying. You can get away with that in Green Bay because all you got to do is go throw 3 touchdowns against the Chicago Bears and all is forgiven. You say that about Philadelphia and then go back to Philly? It ain't happening. I mean, you're an Eagles guy. You know Philly sports culture well. If Ben Simmons played for the 76ers this year, that would be no bueno.
I kind of want to see it just to see like what the crowd response would be. I think we can all guess what the crowd response would be. I just want to see the level that they would take it to. Anyway, when Ben Simmons was holding out and he said he didn't want to be in Philadelphia anymore, I kind of understood that. I didn't really have sympathy for him, but I kind of understood where he was coming from. You know, he felt disrespected there after, you know, the playoff series. It was a bad situation because of what happened in that playoff series against the Hawks when he didn't take that wide open dunk and sort of Joel Embiid was saying, you know, I thought the turning point was when we had a wide open dunk. We didn't take it. And okay, you don't want to be there anymore. You're sitting out. Lost all that sort of whatever little sympathy I had for him when he came back because he realized that he was losing so much money. Like, if you're going to take a stand and lose that money, I'm down for it. Okay, get him out of Philadelphia. Then to come back these last couple days and sort of just mope around the court. Clearly, you're just trying to be there so you don't get fined, as Marshawn Lynch would say.
Right.
Man, it's such a screwed up situation, such a lost situation now.
I've heard a lot of crazy rumors about who might be traded. Damian Lillard would be crazy. But I've also heard Kyrie Irving, which I think that's just like trading one distraction, one cancer for the other one. That ain't good either. But we'll continue to analyze this because we got a lot of time before this is very pertinent in the world of the NBA. One other thing, Andrew, that you've been doing a good job spearheading here since you joined us here at Missoula Broadcasting Company. You got a soccer podcast out there, and you guys, this is a soccer on all levels, right? I mean, sometimes you're talking international soccer, sometimes you're talking soccer on the Montana and or even Missoula levels. So just tell people a little bit about it, because we've been playing an excerpt from time to time around here, but a cool endeavor, particularly because I think soccer has gained a tremendous amount of popularity in Western Montana and just in America in general these last couple of years.
Yeah, and that's really why I wanted to get into it, because I think Missoula is sort of a latent, very good soccer town. I've told you this story. I don't know if I've told this story on the podcast. A couple years ago when I was living here for the last time, I went to the Mar Bar to try to watch the Champions League final between Liverpool and Tottenham. I thought I could get there, 10 minutes before kickoff, wouldn't be a problem. Got there and it was packed out. I couldn't even find a place to stand. And ended up having to go to the James Bar to watch it, which was nice.
Right.
Great game. Congratulations to Liverpool, of course. Missoula is a good soccer town. So anyway, check out the podcast. It's called Soccer and Snow and Smoke. You can find it on Spotify, basically wherever you get your podcasts. It's really cool. We're talking to a lot of the great soccer figures in this town, and this is the perfect time to do it because the Montana Grizzlies soccer team is playing really well.
Chris Chudovitsky coming up soon, right?
Chris Chudovitsky's coming into the studio, hopefully with a player or two on Thursday. We'll have a new episode out as the Grizzlies go into their final regular season weekend heading into the conference tournament.
Super cool.
High school soccer tournaments, state tournaments start today, so check out the last
for sure. Yep.
Last episode. Last week I got an episode up with Hellgate girls coach Natalie Hiller-Claridge, Hellgate boys coach Jay Anderson, Sentinel girls coach Dan Lockridge, all those guys just walking me through their team, walking me through the season, what to expect in the state tournaments. So if you want to know about the high school soccer state tournaments, check that out. That's the best place to learn about it. I talked with those guys for 20, 30 minutes each. It was great. So that's what we're hoping to do. I mean, we just want to learn about soccer in Missoula.
No question. I think that's good stuff for sure. And we will this is live show planning right here, but let's cut up a couple of some tidbits from those high school interviews. That's good. That's pertinent for this time of year. Obviously, the Hellgate boys, one of the great dynasties in high school sports in Montana. I mean, they're rolling right now. I think 5 out of the last 7 state championships for the Hellgate boys. So we'll keep you in tune for all of that. It's Nuanez now, 102.9 ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. This is great. I love that the way our conversations sort of meander here. Last week I thought we were going to spend 5 minutes, and we spent 30 minutes on the heavyweight championship bout. So I got a few things in there, but now let's talk about what everybody in Missoula is talking about. Our Grizz Fan podcast last night went 3 hours because There's just so many layers to what's going on with Montana. I think that there's so many things with the Grizz football team that are at the same time not unique, but sort of a new frontier for this iteration of the Grizz, this group of players, this group of coaches. Bobby Hauck has certainly coached teams that have had high highs and low lows. He's also coached teams with unprecedented expectations. He's coached teams that have been ranked in the top of not just the conference, but the country. When Coach Hauck was on his run, his 7 Big Sky titles made it 12 in a row for Montana. I believe until North Dakota State took that mantle, or maybe Oklahoma back in the 50s. There's very few college programs that have ever won 10-plus conference titles in a row. Coach Hauck helped Montana get to 12 in a row. So all that's to say, he has massive experience in terms of handling the bullseye on their backs. He has massive experience playing in the national spotlight and on the biggest stage in FCS football. Yet, I think that one of the primary factors of this Grizz team that just lost 28-21 on Saturday is right now they feel the weight of the exposure and the hysteria and everything that surrounds their program, because the Grizz were riding as high as I'd seen them ride in about 12 or 13 years, coming into the night game against Western Illinois, coming out of the night game at Western Illinois, even with a sort of lackluster performance against Cal Poly. It was still a 38-7, 39-7 conference victory, undefeated record, top 5 ranking, all that as they headed over to Eastern Washington. And then from the fourth quarter of the Eastern Washington game until now, the amount of hype and all of this, the crazy pandemonium going around the Grizz, the pandemonium's still at a fever pitch. The tone of it has changed significantly. So I think that's one of the biggest factors, despite the X's and O's and the weaknesses and the injuries and all the things that we're going to diagnose. I think that the element of pressure might be one that's creeping in. Not that they can't handle it, but this group hasn't had to handle it before.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that beating Washington in the season opener was a bad thing for this team, right? Because obviously that's a historic win. You get so much national attention coming out of that. But I think the way that the tenor of the coverage and the attitude and the conversation around this team changed after that game was, like you said, something that hadn't been around this team since 2012, 2011. You know, I'm as guilty as anybody. We at Skyline Sports are as guilty as anybody of putting the attitude around this team. I wrote the piece before the season. I mean, the only question that matters this season is, are the Grizz back?
And Coach Hauck, after the Cal Poly game, said that he thought that they were. Not even they thought they were. He said, I told these guys in the locker room, it was after his 100th win, so he was certainly in the moment, and it was certainly a proud moment for him. But Alexa Belcastro, who's over at MTN, helping out Kyle Hansen, she asked him a good question. She said, Coach, has your return to your alma mater gone like you expected it to? And Coach Hauck said, it has. And I told these guys in the locker room, you guys did it. The Grizz are back. I'm so proud of these guys. I found it just so interesting because the Grizz are certainly better than they have been. I think that they got the right guy leading the way. I just also thought that objectively, to say that a team is back and you compare it to the standard that was set, again, this team was perennially the number 1 team in the country for like the duration of the season, almost every season for a decade.
That's why it's such a loaded question at Montana, and why it's such an interesting question. Is Montana back?
Being in and out of the top 10 is not back for Montana.
Right.
That's baseball that's rolling off the desk, if you just noticed that. This is live radio at its finest.
It's a question that carries a different connotation than literally anywhere else in the country.
I know. And then I start to think about that in terms of Montana and its status as a program. Because we've seen several programs, some of the most prestigious programs in the country, all levels of college football, get stuck where the history of the place is so important to the place and the current and future of that program, yet the shadow that history casts is so profound that it alters everything that happens within the program. A la Texas and Nebraska. I often wonder, is Montana Texas and Nebraska? I don't know. But at Texas, Texas has not been nearly as bad as the national media wants you to think Texas has been since Mac Brown retired. But anything 9-3 isn't good enough at Texas. Nothing's good enough at Texas except for 13-0 and national champions. And Nebraska's the same way. I mean, at this point, Nebraska's been so knocked down that 9-3 would be a welcome change in Nebraska. But still, many of the diehard fans are longing for the mid-90s multiple in a row national championships. And so I think it's one of the biggest challenges Montana has. How do you escape from the shadow of the past?
Yeah, same thing at USC, even a place like Notre Dame. It's like we always say, your greatest strength is also your biggest weakness.
Yep.
You can't escape that question at places like that and like at Montana. And on one hand, it gives you something to shoot for, and it gives you advantages in recruiting still, and advantages in fundraising, of course. But at the same time, you'll never escape it.
Nuanez now, ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Andrew Houghton joining me, Colter Nuanez. We're talking all things Big Sky Conference, specifically at this moment, University of Montana sports. This segment is presented to you by Nick Tabor and Westpac Wealth. Westpac Wealth, making your life more tax efficient. Whether you need business succession plans or estate planning, give Westpac Wealth and Nick Tabor a call today. I talked with Brian Holzinger, the new Lady Grizz head coach, about this because Brian Holzinger has Montana ties. He was at Montana Tech for several years. His staff is rich with Montana ties. I mean, Jordan Sullivan's Robin Selvig's sister's daughter, for God's sakes. So, I mean, she knows the Lady Grizz history better than anybody, but Nate Harris and Jocelyn Tinkle also very intertwined in the history of the program. But I talked with Holzinger about this because the Lady Grizz women's basketball program has among, if not the most prestigious and impressive history and lineage of any single program in the Big Sky Conference, period, any sport. I mean, this Street and Smith magazine, which is one of the longtime documentarians of college hoops, named the University of Montana women's basketball program as the 7th greatest program in the history of Division I basketball, behind only programs like UConn and Tennessee and Louisiana Tech, and I can't remember who else was up there, but they were number 7. And Stanford had to be in there too. But I think that the number one thing that crushed Shannon Schwain's tenure as the head coach of the Lady Grizz was the past. She wasn't Robin Selvig. There was no replicating Selvig's model. Nobody can replicate Selvig's model. Then everybody wondered, well, why can't the person who's the greatest player in his program's history, who then also worked for him for 27 years, why can't it be replicated? It was a moment in time that will never be replicated again. And so that's why I think with the Lady Grizz, Holzinger said, when I asked him this, he said, hey, we're trying to embrace the history of this place as much as possible because it is one of our greatest advantages. But we also have to embrace it by not trying to repeat it. In other words, no one else is going to be Robin Selvig. You can't just recruit girls from Class B schools in Montana and then develop them. Robin Selvig could. He could get girls that played Class B basketball in Montana high schools to become all-conference players. It's very rare, if not impossible, for other people to be able to do that, other coaches to be able to do that. So Holzinger said, hey, we're going to use the history of this place, but we're going to do it in a completely different fashion. And now here you see it. They're recruiting internationally. They're recruiting in areas that they've never recruited from. I can't remember, even Colorado, I can't really ever remember the last time the Lady Grizz had players from Colorado, let alone the Midwest and let alone abroad. And so it'll be interesting to see how it works, but I think it's an interesting dynamic because the history of the place overwhelms a lot of the University of Montana's athletic programs. And it's very funny, actually, when you think about the men's basketball program, how much they've embraced that and used it to their advantage for 40 years. But then how it is sort of this omnipresent challenge that both the Grizz football team and the Lady Grizz basketball teams have.
The problem with that history, at every school that we've talked about this, is that it locks you into one way of doing things. Because why would you change when you have had that run of success, when you've won the conference title for over a decade at Montana football? Why would you change? Or at a place like Nebraska, or with the Lady Grizz basketball program. But at the same time, while you're not innovating, all those teams that you're beating every year are. So if you're not staying ahead of the curve, eventually you're falling back because your history is trapping you in the same cycle. And all these places, I mean, in Big Sky women's basketball, John Newley at Idaho, he's shooting 1 million threes a game because he's innovating, because he has to beat the Lady Grizz.
Exactly.
Seton Sobolewski at Idaho
John
State.
Newley created his style to beat Robin Selvig's zone.
Exactly. Seton Sobolewski at Idaho State is recruiting half his roster from overseas every year because he has to beat Robin Selvig at Montana. In the Big Sky Conference football. I mean, this
exactly
is
right.
But
the Grizz set the pace for the rest of the league.
Absolutely. But in Big Sky football, this is why you see so much stylistic diversity. I was talking with Idaho State defensive line coach Byron Hout today about exactly this. He's been in the league for a while because he coached at Montana State. Asked him about the stylistic diversity of offenses in the league, which we've pushed all the time. I asked him, with Cal Poly out of the league, does it become easier to prepare week to week because you're not seeing the triple option? Or not with Cal Poly out of the league, with Cal Poly not running the triple option anymore?
Sure.
He's like, no, it's just as varied as it's ever been. And a lot of that, I think, came out of Montana's dominance in the league in the 2000s. That's why you have the spread offenses at Eastern Washington. Jay Hill coming back to defense. All these guys had to innovate to keep up with Montana. At Montana, it's hard to say that they weren't innovating, but that history of success traps you into doing the same thing.
It's so true, man. It's a great point. Nuanez now, ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. This is like a throwback. This reminds me of when Gus and I used to do the show. We haven't even looked at the outline yet, and we're already up against it. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break, and we're going to get you all caught up on high school stuff from around the state in prep, specifically football, and maybe give you a little update on what's going on in the soccer world as well, because as Andrew mentioned, the soccer playoffs are right around the corner. So we'll do that, and then we'll return to this analysis about Montana and Montana State, and also take you around the Big Sky Conference. So keep it right here. Prep football, Big Sky Conference football, and of course, before the end of the first hour here, Johanse Humphrey. It's ESPN Missoula. Nuanez now. Hey, it's Colter Nuanez from Nuanez Now, here with Brent Wahlberg of the Wahlberg team at Windermere Real Estate. It's a complicated real estate market right now. What do you think is the biggest challenge?
This is a real tough market for buyers because what we have right now is an unprecedented lack of available options, low supply. You have to be extra competitive. You've got to make your first offer your strongest offer. Experts like myself in this market can really help people do that.
Call Brent Wahlberg and the Wahlberg team at 529-4663 today. Paul Ryan is a name that's been synonymous with law around the Garden City for decades. And Paul is excited to announce the expansion of his firm to Ryan, Holloway, and Miller. Paul Ryan, Nate Holloway, and Angie Miller have a fierce love for their community and want to help you with any of your legal needs. From auto accidents to medical malpractice to wrongful death or any criminal defense, Ryan, Holloway, and Miller should be your first call. Paul has established a reputation as the top legal mind in Missoula, claiming the Garden City's best attorney honors 13 different years. Ryan, Holloway, and Miller is a local firm with experience and intimate knowledge to help clients with any needs. Ryan, Holloway, and Miller will be available to take your calls at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So no matter what your legal needs in western Montana and around the Treasure State, when it comes to personal injury or criminal defense, call Ryan, Holloway, and Miller today. Ryan, Holloway, and Miller, your Montana attorneys.
Open your new Stockman Bank account anytime, anywhere with online account opening. Now, you can open an account in minutes on your laptop, tablet, or mobile phone. It's convenient, simple, and secure. Open your new account today at stockmanbank.com. Then, add our online and mobile banking services so you can manage your money when, where, and how you want. Stockman Bank, Montana's brand of banking. Member FDIC.
Like most Montanans, we love a good steak. And because we're the Montana Club, we take the steaks we serve very seriously. We're confident to say that our custom grilled steaks are as good a steak as you're going to get. Now we're proud to add regularly sourced, naturally raised Castle Rock bison ribeye to our selection. And remember, the Montana Club steak entrees include the sides. Come into the Montana Club today for an unrivaled steak experience. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Bob Ward's Your Hunting Headquarters wants to remind you to keep an eye on that calendar. Don't miss out on opening day because you don't have the gear. Get into Bob Ward's now. You'll find the biggest and best selection of everything from scopes to shells, rifles to rangefinders, calls to camo, and much, much more. Visit your local Bob Ward's for in-store sales updated weekly. Hunters, your season is here. Head into Bob Ward's and gear up. Bob Ward's, sports and outdoors. Montana's best friend for the great outdoors for over 100 years.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Set them up and the Spartans will knock them down. That's been the case for almost 2 full seasons at Missoula Sentinel. Hello, I am Colter Nuanez. Top-ranked Sentinel Spartans continued their quest for a second consecutive Class AA state championship, yet another statement win on Friday night. Sentinel won for the 7th straight time this fall, including the 5th time against a ranked team alone this season with a 32-0 win over number 3 Helena Capital. That marks the 17th straight victory dating back to the beginning of last season for the Spartans. Adam Jones rushed for 3 touchdowns and Zach Cruz threw a 4th to senior Easton Ledbetter as Sentinel secured top seed in the West with 1 game remaining in the regular season. Helena High won for the 3rd week in a row to move back into the top 3 in the Treasure State Media Poll by dispatching Missoula Big Sky 42-7. Kate Holland scored 3 total touchdowns as the Bengals moved to 6-2 overall, dropping Big Sky to 2-6. After an 0-4 start, Great Falls High continued its late surge, winning for the 4th week in a row by getting past Billings Senior 23-7. That moves the Bison to 4-2 in Eastern AA play, while dropping the Bronx to 3-5 overall. And finally, Billings West kept pace, rolling to a 49-20 win over number 5 Great Falls CMR behind a pair of touchdown catches. Future Bobcat Taco Dowler. West is now 6-0 in Eastern AA play and 7-1 overall, while the Rustlers are 5-3 after their 2nd straight loss.
This 102.9 ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
I gotta testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day I die, I'ma touch the sky. Gotta testify. Come up in the spot looking extra fly. For the day I die, I'ma touch the sky. Back when they thought pink polos would hurt the rock. Before Cam got the pop, the doors is closed. I felt like
Iconic song, iconic music video. Never in my life did I think I was going to see Kanye West and Miss Baywatch, Pamela Anderson, running around together in a music video, but then all of a sudden, Kanye kept just doing the thing, man. I say it all the time around here, but if you don't like Kanye, I'm sorry. I don't care. I love Kanye West. We're always going to play some Kanye here at Nuanez Now. Welcome back in. ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. I am Colter Nuanez. Appreciate you riding with me here on a Tuesday. About 15 minutes. Got some free sandwiches for you. Taglieri Delicatessen. Got a $25 gift card for you. But just wait. I get through a little prep extra first. But stay tuned. Got free Taglieri Delicatessen for you coming up here a little bit later. Also going to hear from Johansi Humphrey, one of the all-time greatest Grizzlies, as an excerpt of our, ironically called, Grizz Greats, the 20th anniversary of the 2001 national champions. Time now for our Prep Extra, presented by Farmer State Bank. Do this a couple times a week, rounding up and rounding around the state of Montana. Let's check out some high school football scores first and foremost. It's week 8 already, which is crazy. This upcoming weekend is the final weekend of the regular season. And Class AA level, just a reminder, everybody does make the playoffs. I'm still trying to figure out the way that it all works out, too. It's very confusing to me as well. This change happened like in the midst of expansion as well as the midst of a pandemic, so I'm still getting my bearings, too. Let's talk about the teams that are fast-tracking and certainly on the inside track to not only the playoffs, but playoff seeds and playoff runs. I'm one of, I think, 17 or 18, depending on the week, depending on who's not too busy to answer their text messages. There's 17 or 18 of us throughout the Montana media that vote in the weekly Class AA Treasure State Media Poll. And thanks to Tyler and Nate and the guys over there at the Class AA Football Facebook page that facilitate this thing. I think it's cool. It gives us some stuff to talk about. Here's the poll for this week. For the, I don't even know how many weeks we've done this poll, 7 or 8 weeks, but for at least the 6th week in a row, Missoula Sentinel tops the poll this week. They're number 1. Again, 17 wins in a row for the Spartans. Billings West remains number 2. Helena High, who's been in and out of the top 6, I guess, They're now back up to where I think they belong. That's number 3. Butte High comes in at number 4, and Helena Capital comes in at number 5. Farmers State Bank proudly supporting prep sports around the state of Montana and enriching the lives of Montanans since 1907. They are the proud presenters of this Prep Extra. Let's take a look at some of the scores from Class AA over the weekend. Sentinel, it's funny because I've teased Dane Oliver about this a couple times, and Dane will join us later on this week as well, Missoula Sentinel's head coach, as part of our Garden City Spotlight. But I've teasing Dane. Missoula Sentinel, the state champions a year ago, they went 10-0 undefeated. And I always tease him, is this the NFL where they just give the defending champion the hardest schedule? Because Sentinel had to open up their season against, at the time, top-ranked Billings West. And they knocked them off at Washington Grizzlies Stadium, 22-19. And Sentinel then has played Helena High, Helena Capital. They had to play at Bozeman. They had to play at Glacier. And then they've had to play their inner-city rivals. So it's been a murderer's row for the Spartans, but they continue to roll. And on Friday, 32-0 over Capital, who is the number 3 team in the state. Impressive. Billings West kept rolling. They played a really good CMR team, and they had no problem with the Wrestlers. The Golden Bears, a 49-20 victor over CMR. Helena High, big-time win. That's 3 in a row for the Bengals, 42-7 over Missoula Big Sky. Butte had to pull one out, but they did. And they defeat Hellgate 30-27 to Ranchi Stadium, man. The magic continues. Butte's really, really good at home. And I believe that's where Sentinel finishes their season. We'll have to confirm that, but I believe that's the last regular season game is in Butte. So that'll be interesting. And then in a crosstown, cross-Kalispell matchup, Glacier took down Flathead 56-0. And also a really fun one in Bozeman, the second ever crosstown matchup in Bozeman. Bozeman High beats Bozeman Gallatin 38-35. So a shootout there in southwestern Montana. At the Class A level, perhaps the biggest victory of the entire weekend around the entire state. Fergus County, that's Lewistown for those paying attention. A 21-14 win over number 2 Billings Central. That's the first time that Lewistown has beaten Billings Central in 35, count them, 35 years. That's amazing. That's like been so long that there's a possibility that the parents of the kids on the team were alive the last time that Lewistown took down Billings Central. That'd be pretty young, but, I mean, still pretty crazy that it's been that long. So congratulations to Lewistown. Big-time win for them. Hamilton just keeps on rolling. They're not just undefeated. They are just whipping people. 48-14 at Libby as the Bronx stay undefeated. They're the number 1 team in Class A. And the Florence Falcons, they're taking care of business at even higher level. They go to Whitehall and win 54-7. So the Falcons and the Bronx remain undefeated. So pretty good around western Montana. You got Sentinel here in Missoula on a 17-game winning streak, and you got both Hamilton and Florence. So that's a little 50-mile radius. That's basically the epicenter of high school football in the state of Montana. I mean, that's 50 miles where you have the number 1 team in Class AA, Class A, and Class B. So pretty impressive for this part of the world. And I also believe that Flint Creek, the Drummond-Phillipsburg co-op, is the number 1 team in Class C8, man, as well. So that's also within that little radius. So good football being played here in western Montana. Andrew Houghton confirms, indeed, Sentinel is at Butte. It's a Thursday game this week. So good scheduling note, Andrew. I'm going to have to catch up with Dane Oliver before our normal scheduled Thursday afternoon time slot. He usually lets me have his break period to rap about some football. It is our Prep Extra presented by Farmers State Bank. Out of football and into some football, I'll bring in Andrew Houghton, our producer, to talk a little bit about the state playoffs, because state playoffs, it used to just be the state tournament, and I'm still getting my bearings here when it comes to this, because at the prep level, I was very accustomed to the all-class state volleyball tournament, the all-class state wrestling tournament, of course, state tournaments for high school basketball, but also like the district tournaments in high school basketball. Those have been around forever. Now there's basically those similar types of tournaments, but they're just framed as playoffs in sports like soccer and football. So it's been expanded. But the state playoffs in soccer, and remember, there's only Class AA and Class A soccer. There isn't Class B and Class C soccer. So the state playoffs for soccer begins, I believe, today, right? So tell us a little bit, I mean, what are some of the matchups that we got on the docket here?
Well, just running it down, in the first round for AA, you got 8 teams in the West, 8 teams in the East. You just straight up play the teams from your conference in the first round. I guess it's technically a play-in game or whatever it is. So you just have the 1 seed from the West against the 8 seed from the West. Hellgate boys, of course, the number 1 seed in the West, going for their 3rd straight state championship. I think they've won 6 of the last 10. Like you said, one of the best programs in the state in any sport. They're playing the late game tonight, 7:30 at Fort Missoula against Flathead.
What's that like playing soccer that late at night?
I don't know.
I don't either. I just never really thought of that. It just doesn't seem like soccer under the lights seems fun, I guess.
You play it under the lights. I don't think the lights affect it as much as, like, in football when you're trying to catch a punt under the lights, or in baseball. God knows, trying to catch a fly ball under the lights. Anyway, Hellgate and Flathead, 7:30 p.m. tonight at Fort Missoula. Sentinel, the number 5 seed for the boys on the East, they're playing Helena right now. Helena High. Big Sky, the number 7 seed in the West, they're playing Glacier right now, the number 2 seed. The girls' side, really interesting here. Hellgate and Sentinel finished 2-3 on the girls' side in the West. So Hellgate playing Big Sky. That kicks off at 5 p.m. So coming up right now, Crosstown matchup in the first round. Sentinel playing Flathead right now, the Sentinel girls. So they're set up really well for long runs and perhaps meeting down the line here in this state tournament.
There you go. Thank you, Andrew. Our Prep Extra, presented by Farmer State Bank. Farmer State Bank has been enriching the lives of Montanans since 1907. One of your favorite Grizzlies of all time, one of my favorite Grizzlies of all time, one of the greatest running backs in the history of the University of Montana. An excerpt from our Grizz Greats, the 20th anniversary of the 2001 national champions, with Johansi Humphrey. Next, keep it right here. Nuanez Now, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Why build a work history at a job when you can build a future in your own business? Westpac Wealth Partners is looking for entrepreneurial-minded people who are ready to take their future into their own hands. Nick Tabor and his associates provide clients with financial tools and tested solutions for navigating this complex financial climate. Westpac Wealth also has a work culture that has been recognized as a best workplace in Fortune magazine. If you're ready to start building a business in a long-term career, apply at westpacwealth.com. Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC is not an affiliate or subsidiary of PAS or Guardian. Insurance products offered through Westpac Wealth Partners and Insurance Services, LLC, a DBA of Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC.
Open your new Stockman bank account anytime, anywhere with online account opening. Now, you can open an account in minutes on your laptop, tablet, or mobile phone. It's convenient, simple, and secure. Open your new account today at stockmanbank.com. Then, add our online and mobile banking services so you can manage your money when, where, and how you want. Stockman Bank, Montana's brand of banking. Member FDIC.
Colter Nuanez here from your favorite daily sports talk show, Nuanez Now. I know most of you are like me. You keep your precious car outside in this frigid Montana weather. If you want to change your outlook on those freezing Monday mornings, do what I did. Get yourself an automatic car starter at Aspen Sound. Aspen Sound will install the starter for you efficiently and keep you warm. Aspen Sound can also hook you up with sweet window tinting or a top-notch sound system for your vehicle. Stop by Aspen Sound at 1300 West Broadway in Missoula today.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
You've been dreaming about a sandwich from Tagliari Deli all day. Why continue to torture yourself by waiting even longer? If you order online or call ahead, Tagliari Delicatessen will have the best sandwich in the Treasure State ready for you upon arrival. To place an order, visit TagliariDelicatessen.com or give Tagliari a call at 406-830-3049. Tagliari has been named Montana's best deli by the Food Network and best sandwich by People magazine. Why wait? Order Tagliari Deli ahead of time today.
The old cliche is that nobody cares about your fantasy football team, but that's not entirely true at ESPN Missoula. Tune in each Wednesday to Nuanez Now during the 4 o'clock hour for Wing It Wednesday, presented by the Desperado Sports Tavern and Grill. For years, the Desperado has been providing the best wings in the city of Missoula to you, the loyal listeners, and now Nuanez Now is giving Wing It Wednesday a new spin. Call or text into your favorite daily sports talk show each Wednesday with your fantasy football questions and enter to win a dozen wings from the King of Wings. Wing It Wednesday, reminding you that even if no one else cares about your fantasy football team, we're here for you.
This is Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Radio Missoula.
Your drinks, worldwide AM. Hit me on the Gmail. I brought my boy with me, so bring another female. Diamonds on my fingers, a couple on my toes. Walked into the party and seen so many. Can you work with that? Can you work with that? Can you work with that? I can work with that.
I got a couple old college roommates where basically I think the complete extent of our continued communication is only sending each other hip-hop and gangster rap songs that we used to listen to when we were in high school and college. Hey, if that's what keeps you together, that's a pretty good friendship, man. And it's always fun going down the nostalgic road and remembering some of the songs that we used to dance to. When I was rebranding this show and Ryan Tutel went on his epic road trip and we were deciding what we were going to do here, we were thinking about intro songs, and I asked a lot of people that were important in my life that had known me for a long time what they thought the intro song could be. And I would actually say that of the top 3 vote getters, that song you were just listening to is probably one of them. So there we are. I think that's both an analysis and a referendum on me when I was 20, but definitely a banger to be sure. I love that song. Welcome back. It's Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Speaking of bangers, man, you want to go get yourself a sandwich from Tagliari Deli because that is as good as it gets. Tagliari Deli is located at the corner of Beckwith and Higgins, right by the roundabout there. And they sport not only the greatest sandwich shop on the earth, but also it's a great little Italian-style market. I get some pasta there from time to time. They got some sweet pasta sauces. I go specifically there to get my oils, though. Like there's some oils, the avocado or sesame or whatever, that's fine. Grocery store, all good. But you want that white balsamic or something, or like that extra virgin olive oil from a specific part of the world, man, they got it there for you. That's money as well. They got charcuterie plates, meat and cheeses for those, non-sophisticated swine out there like myself. I only know about charcuterie because one of those college roommates I referenced, they have a charcuterie business. That's all to say, every Tuesday we got a $25 gift card for you to Tagliari Delicatessen. All you got to do is give us a call right now. We're going to go caller number 4. That's caller number 4, 888-1029. That's 888-1029. Give us a call right now, caller number 4. You got a $25 gift card to Tagliari Delicatessen. If you don't win, still head on down there because they have delicious sandwiches and a fun little place to shop, whether you're in the market for some pasta, some red sauce, some wine, some oils, whatever you might possibly need. Johansi Humphrey finished his career as one of the great Grizzlies of all time. He is the all-time leader in rushing yards in Montana, and he set the single-season rushing record during his senior year in 2001. But the backstory of Johansi Humphrey is quite fascinating. Eagle River, Alaska. I'm not sure how many lettermen even have ever come from Alaska at the University of Montana, but Johansi Humphrey is one of them, and certainly the best because he's one of the best Grizz of all time, just point blank, period. Grizz Greats, the 20th anniversary of the 2001 National Champions, is available on all your podcast hosting platforms. Go check it out. Please rate, review, subscribe, share, all those good things. The latest episode.
That was the culmination, I think, of our season. That last drive and ending in a touchdown, which I had the honor of running up the backs of my offensive line and scooting in really untouched into the end zone. And that was just a really good feeling to be part of that drive, that season, that team, and for that to be part of my senior experience. I can imagine that the 11 other seniors on the team at that game had a similar experience where we couldn't have asked for a better ending to our University of Montana time.
Hello and welcome to Grizz Greats, the 20th anniversary of the 2001 National Championship Grizzlies. I'm Colter Nuanez of ESPN Missoula, proud to bring you the third rendition of our Grizz Greats podcast series. This one, a 20-episode podcast series with in-depth interviews with 20 members of the University of Montana's 2001 National Championship team. We'll catch up with players, coaches, members of the Missoula and Montana communities, and other pertinent observers of that historic national championship, Montana's last football national title. In this episode, one of the all-time most famous Grizzlies, Yohanse Humphrey. Humphrey came to Montana out of Chugiak High in Eagle River, Alaska. He was a two-way player that was initially slated to play cornerback for the Grizzlies. Instead, broke in the lineup as a running back and became one of the great running backs in the history of the Big Sky Conference. Humphrey still leads Montana in career rushing yards with 4,070 between 1998 and 2001. His 138 rushing yards per game in 2001 is a school record by a wide margin. His 1,658 yards during that national championship season, also a single-season Grizz record, and he is one of just 4 Grizz running backs with multiple 1,000-yard seasons in his career. Humphrey was phenomenal from start to finish during that 2001 season, but his 38-carry, 265-yard rushing effort against Weber State, one of the most iconic by a Grizz running back or a Big Sky Conference running back in the history of Division I AA football. From Eagle River, Alaska, to All-American honors at Montana and a national championship ring. Without further ado, Grizz Greats with Yohanse Humphrey. Well, and you can allow your skill and ability to take over when you have great skill and ability like you do, but also when you have one of the most formidable offensive lines that the league has seen blocking for you. I know that came to a fever pitch during your senior year with a Montana-born group. Everybody was from in-state, but just talk about those guys a little bit just as a whole, because I'm sure you came up with them, probably had a lot of trust in them, and they probably helped your acclimation process pretty darn well as well, because those late 90s, early 2000s Grizz offensive line, some of the best the Big Sky Conference has seen.
I would say the best.
Yep.
You know, from my perspective, they were absolutely integral in our team's success on the offensive side of the ball, and my success as a running back. Without those big guys in front of me, and the nastiness of those big guys, skill of those big guys, and without them, right, and their trust in me to do what I do, right, and continue to, maintain their blocks downfield. One of the greats, Thatcher Zalay, is one who continues to kind of run through my mind constantly. In terms of, I catch myself thinking about him every once in a while, and it was just interesting to kind of hear him. I think it was him talking about kind of the end of the road, in terms of the NFL, and they had a chance to kind of go through his history at the U. And so, yeah, I just loved running behind him because I trusted that he was just going to blow up everybody in front of him. McFarland, right, was another one. And, I mean, their influence on my career at the U is unparalleled. Without them, there is no Yohanse in the record books. There isn't the throttling that we put on many opponents because of their protection of our quarterbacks, giving them the time to pass the ball downfield to our great receivers. And I mean, that's just, talking about this just really reminds me and emphasizes the caliber of player that we had at literally every position. And we weren't just one deep, right? We were multiple deep, and not just on the offensive side of the ball, but on the defense. Our defensive line, killer. Linebackers, killer. Defensive backs, killer, right? Smart, tenacious, and just, again, the whole package. It was really a blessing to be part of that team, right? It's something that I kind of reflect on every once in a while, right? It comes up, and something will, like, hey, Yohanse this, Yohanse that, And if you boil it all down, it was the team. There was no Johanse without the team. And so it's just was really a blessing to be part of that team and that group of guys coming in with a like mind, a like mentality, willing to pay the cost to go big or go home. It was just a great atmosphere to be part of.
Well, your junior year certainly set the table for your senior year, but we have to talk about that for a brief moment. Joe Glenn comes in as the head coach, and I believe as the legend goes, I think you guys lost his very first game to Hofstra in Missoula, and then there was the urban legend of him having a for sale sign in his yard, but then you guys didn't lose again for months at a time, all the way until the national championship game. But what do you remember about that 2000 season? What are your indelible memories from that time, and how much do you think that year and that finish with that loss to Georgia Southern in the national championship game sort of set the table for 2001?
We came in all business, right? There was no question about the mission. There was, I think, in 2000, right? There was like the season went along, and we were like, oh man, yeah, this is really happening. This is our goal, right? This is, we're making it to the national championship, right? We've gotten through Big Sky. We are a force to be reckoned with. We can do this, right? And then we get to that game, and we don't win. And so with 2001, we come in and we already know who we are. We know that there were things in that 2000 national championship game that got exposed, and we needed to shore those up. We did. That was our mission. Right. Our mission was to get back to the national championship and to reclaim what was rightfully ours. And so coming in business-like, with the same mind, same mentality, and really taking it one game at a time and getting putting our work in daily and getting the business done. And I think what's funny is that, the class that I came in with, I just remember the mentality of work hard, play hard, right? And that's what 2001 was, right? We worked hard, but we played hard as well. And I think that just added to our team chemistry and dynamic, is that we weren't just a team off of or on the field. We were a team off the field, right? And I think things just worked out perfectly in 2001, lending itself to the culmination of winning that national championship.
It's so often that you see this, especially in football, but in sports, where you fall just short, and that is a motivating factor. And then it's almost like, not a foregone conclusion, that's the wrong way to state it, but that it forms teams of destiny when they fall just short and then get another chance to run it back. And it sounds exactly like that was the dynamic. But even though retrospectively that 2001 team went 15-1, it wasn't all easy. You guys had some games where you really had to get it out. A win over Eastern Washington in overtime, a win over Idaho in overtime, and also probably a game we have to talk about with you as well, a great win over Weber State, in which you set the school record for rushing yards in a single game with 265. But just take us through maybe what you do remember from that 2001 season specifically, and what was the defining factor that helped you guys get over the top, especially in some of those games where teams were giving you their best shot?
Well, that was exactly it. We knew coming in that everyone was gunning for us, that everyone was going to be giving us their best shot. Essentially, every game was a national championship, right? That's how we had to address it. And I don't think without those challenges, those specific games that we either fell behind at and we had to, push to get the lead, or our defense had to make a big stop or get a turnover. Those are the defining moments of the season, right? Because without those, we were still just a team striving to get to the end of the game, right, with a bigger score than the other team. And I think it really played itself out against Furman in that national championship. It was a dogfight, right? Winning 13-6.
That's right.
And it wasn't pretty, and that's the type of game that we were being prepared for. Would we have liked it to be, a smooth sail? Absolutely, right? Who wouldn't like, a red carpet laid out to the national championship? But I don't think without those wins, we would have found ourselves behind the 8 ball, I think, in the national championship, and that's saying if we got there, right? It gave us the will. I think it forged in us the will and the tenacity to get to the finish line. And I think it made it that much more sweet, to be honest with you. Like you said, it was business as usual in the beginning. I think it would have been easy, and maybe we might have slipped mentally into that thought process in our own minds of this is a foregone conclusion. We know how good we are, so let's just go into the game and do what we do, right? But because we were pushed, because we lost that first game, reality set in, real quick. And then we kept on getting challenged, getting everyone's best shot. And I think it just brought to the forefront what was on the line. And it kind of came back to that whole expectation thing. We knew the expectation. It came from, like you had said, growing up in the system, filling those big shoes, knowing what it took to meet those expectations. And now we have to meet our own expectations. And so we set that up for ourselves. And so if we would have fallen short, it would have been heartbreaking, right? Because we were letting ourselves down, and the expectations that we had set for ourselves, knowing also that we would have let the school, the community, down and so forth. So looking back, it's kind of like a storybook, storybook ending. You got your drama, you got your highs, your lows, and at the end, we got that shining ring.
That's seriously only 12 minutes of an hour-long deal. I mean, what a great storyteller that guy is. Unbelievable. I couldn't believe all the stuff he was saying. It was so fun to listen to him. His cadence, the way he speaks. Awesome, man. Hansi Humphrey might be as good of a speaker as he was a running back, and he's one of the great running backs in the history of the University of Montana. Please go check out Grizz Greats, the 20th anniversary of the 2001 national champions. It's our third iteration of our Grizz Greats podcast series, and it is proudly presented by Blackfoot Communications, as well as First Security Bank of Missoula. Right now, 5 live Grizz Greats episodes, so tease for later on in the week, too. Atu Molden's episode is out, but he, after listening to the episodes we've produced already, hit me up and was like, man, I want to get a couple more things on there. And I said, okay, well, the podcast is already produced. He said, but that's okay. I got it. I just want to say some stuff to the people of Missoula. So Atu is going to come on with us on Thursday, live on this show, and that'll be sort of a promotion of Grizz Greats, but also just an opportunity to hear live here on Nuanez Now from one of my favorite all-time Grizzlies and one of the great Grizz of all time. Hour 1 in the books, Hour 2 of Nuanez Now coming at you. We're going to take you all the way around the Big Sky Conference. I'm going to give you my Big Sky Conference power rankings. Andrew Houghton's going to tell me why I'm right or why I'm wrong. We're also going to give you our Treasure State stars for the week and maybe continue our conversation about the omnipresent shadow that is the history at the University of Montana. All that and more right here on ESPN Radio. Keep it right here. It's Nuanez Now.
I love family road trips. Wind in my ears.
Good dog.
Treats in my mouth. And peace of mind knowing Les Schwab did our tires, brakes, and alignment. Like Les Schwab, my family's safety is my first priority. Well, that and squeaky toys.
Swing by today and get road trip ready with our always free pre-trip safety check. Les Schwab Tires. Applies to passenger cars, SUVs, and light trucks only. Details at leschwab.com/safety.
Paul Ryan is a name that's been synonymous with law around the Garden City for decades. And Paul is excited to announce the expansion of his firm to Ryan, Holloway, and Miller. Paul Ryan, Nate Holloway, and Angie Miller have a fierce love for their community and want to help you with any of your legal needs. From auto accidents to medical malpractice to wrongful death or any criminal defense, Ryan, Holloway, and Miller should be your first call. Paul has established a reputation as the top legal mind in Missoula, claiming the Garden City's best attorney honors 13 different years. Ryan Holloway and Miller is a local firm with experience and intimate knowledge to help clients with any needs. Ryan Holloway and Miller will be available to take your calls at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So no matter what your legal needs in Western Montana and around the Treasure State, when it comes to personal injury or criminal defense, call Ryan Holloway and Miller today. Ryan Holloway and Miller, your Montana attorneys.
Football is back, and Nuanez now has everything you need to know about the weekend for the Grizzlies, the Bobcats, around the Big Sky Conference, and around the Treasure State in the prep ranks, too. Join Colter Nuanez and other contributing guests for the first hour of each Monday's Nuanez Now, beginning at 4 p.m. for compelling analysis, interesting information, interviews, and more. The Montana Football Hour, the first hour of each Monday's Nuanez Now, beginning at 4 p.m. on 102.9 ESPN Missoula and statewide on SWX Montana Television. The Montana Football Hour, presented by Stockman Bank of Montana.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Set them up and the Spartans will knock them down. That's been the case for almost 2 full seasons at Missoula Sentinel. Hello, I am Colter Nuanez. Top-ranked Sentinel Spartans continued their quest for a second consecutive Class AA state championship. Yet another statement win on Friday night. Sentinel won for the 7th straight time this fall, including the 5th time against a ranked team alone this season with a 32-0 win over number 3 Helena Capital. That marks the 17th straight victory dating back to the beginning of last season for the Spartans. Adam Jones rushed for 3 touchdowns and Zach Cruz threw a 4th to senior Easton Ledbetter as Sentinel secured top seed in the West with 1 game remaining in the regular season. Helena High won for the 3rd week in a row to move back into the top 3 in the Treasure State media poll by dispatching Missoula Big Sky 42-7. Kate Holland scored 3 total touchdowns as the Bengals moved to 6-2 overall, dropping Big Sky to 2-6. After an 0-4 start, Great Falls High continued its late surge, winning for the 4th week in a row by getting past Billings Senior 23-7. That moves the Bison to 4-2 in Eastern AA play, while dropping the Bronx to 3-5 overall. And finally, Billings West kept pace, rolling to a 49-20 win over number 5 Great Falls CMR behind a pair of touchdown catches. Future Bobcat Taco Dowler. West is now 6-0 in Eastern AA play and 7-1 overall, while the Rustlers are 5-3 after their 2nd straight loss.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Selway Armory. So, how I feel about all of you. I want you all to be happier. Hopefully this show makes you happy. It makes me very happy. Welcome back. It's Nuanez Now, 102.9 ESPN Radio, maybe SWX Montana Television's where you're watching. I am Colter Nuanez, and I'm broadcasting to you from the Northwest Motorsport Studio. Northwest Motorsport. It's got Trucktober rocking right now. Trucks, and more trucks, and you can get them at as low as a 1.99% APR financing right now. To check out the largest inventory of trucks anywhere in the Pacific Northwest, visit nwmsrocks.com. That's nwmsrocks.com. Missed anything in the first hour of the show? Great conversation about a variety of things, including the looming and omnipresent shadow that is the history of the University of Montana's athletic department and the way that influences and perhaps hinders certain elements of the football and women's basketball programs. We also took you around the state for our Prep Extra, high school football and high school soccer. By the way, side note, these Sentinel girls are up 4-0 right now in their playoff game against Kalispell Flathead. So 4-0 Sentinel leads in the opening round of the Class AA state playoffs that begin today. Then we also heard from Johansi Humphrey. If you want to hear the entire interview from Johansi Humphrey, go to Grizz Greats, the 20th anniversary of the 2001 national champions. You can subscribe to that one. 5 episodes out so far. And you can also hear that excerpt, as well as the rest of the first hour in the show, on the Nuanez Now podcast, which is proudly presented by Blackfoot Communications, the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel, and Sportsbet Montana. We bring now back Andrew Houghton into the show. He's our producer here at ESPN Missoula, also a longtime contributor and writer at SkylineSportsMT.com. He's been helping us out in a variety of different fashions here at Missoula Broadcasting Company for the last couple months. And Andrew, before we get back into some talk about the Big Sky Conference, got to touch a little bit. I know you're a big baseball guy. Baseball playoffs are going on. I'm trying to care. I am caring a little bit. I've been following a little bit. And I will tell you this, the thing that I care about the most is the series that's transpiring right now, in which the Atlanta Braves lead 2-0 in the series, and then they lead in Game 3 of this series 4-2 against the reigning world champion Los Angeles Dodgers. I care about this only because I don't like good things for my good friends, and I can't stand the prospect of Riley Corcoran and many of my other Dodger friends. And if you're listening, you know who you are. The buy the championship model in baseball makes me queasy. I don't like it. I know it's the way that it goes, but I just really want the Braves to knock out the Dodgers.
Pretty shocking that they're up 2-0 right now.
It is.
You have to wonder if that San Francisco Giants series took something out of the Dodgers, because that was one of the greatest series, especially 5-game divisional series.
Man, well, it's because it was between a team that won 108 and a team that won 107, 106. Like this
I think it was 107 and 106.
I mean, historic win totals. I mean, like top 25 win totals of all time.
And also, they played each other 18 times in the regular season with the division on the line the entire way up until the last game of the regular season. And then you look at some of the pitching matchups in that series. I mean, Max Scherzer, Walker Buehler, Logan Webb was incredible for the Giants. That was, I watched a couple of those games. The intensity of those games in the first round was, man, it was right up there with a lot of World Series that I've watched. So you have to wonder if that's taking a lot out of the Dodgers. I don't like the Dodgers either, because my first love in baseball was the Arizona Diamondbacks, although I'm not as serious.
I did not know that.
Really?
Interesting. Andrew's from the East Coast, from D.C. So, how did that become? Just because they were sort of new when you were a kid?
They were the new thing. They had the cool colors where they were the teal and copper and everything.
I've always been sort of a fringe Diamond. I mean, I'm an Indians guy, and then my second favorite team is San Francisco Giants, because that was like the first game I went to. My mom's from the Bay, so I went with one of her brothers. But I would actually say the Diamondbacks probably my third favorite team, because my family's from Arizona. They were new. When they came out, I was, a kid. And they have cool colors, like you said. I love red. It's one of my favorite colors. And more than anything, though, the Missoula Osprey.
Right. Definitely, because they were a farm team in the Diamondbacks for the longest time, so you could see those guys if and when they made it to the majors. When I was growing up, when I was really young, Washington, D.C. didn't have a baseball team.
Right.
Because they didn't move there until 2005.
Right, because the Senators had left and then not returned until you had then left Washington, D.C. then, huh? Or I guess you'd already picked your affiliation.
Right. I'm a Nationals fan now, but they were always my secondary team because it took a while for me to sort of latch onto that. And the Diamondbacks in the early 2000s were really, really good. So they were on national TV in the playoffs. I mean, those Johnson, Schilling, Luis Gonzalez teams, they were pretty visible. And I just, I liked the colors. I liked the logo. I liked the players. And I was a kid, and that became my team.
I love it. What's the scoop with the rest of the baseball playoffs? I guess I can just look it up. But, I mean, I know that the Dodgers are the favorites for sure, but they're not right now with the fact that they're down 2-0. Right now in the American League, the Boston Red Sox and the Houston Astros are playing out. That's Game 3 tonight.
Game 4 tonight.
Game 4 tonight, excuse me. The Red Sox lead the Astros 2-1. So we got our NL and our ALCSs, and as of right now, the two heavy favorites are not the teams winning the series. Wouldn't you agree that the Dodgers and the Astros are certainly favored in these respective series? Or at least they were before the other teams took the lead.
I agree. I think, the Dodgers have really dominated baseball the last couple of years because, like you said, they always had the money. When they hired Andrew Friedman from out of Tampa Bay and to be the GM, Andrew Friedman was a guy who won without a lot of money, and now you give them the biggest budget in all of baseball. They have the money side. They can sign whoever they want. They can trade for whoever they want, as they did with Mookie Betts when he got too expensive for the Boston Red Sox. But they're also they're very good at developing pitchers. They're very good at finding contributors like Chris Taylor, Justin Turner for cheap. They've got everything.
Just go look at the Mariners, man. Just get the Mariners guy, and he'll go hit game-winning home runs for you.
Exactly.
Sorry, that's a cheap shot, but I have to, because I know there's a lot of Mariners people out here. I had this conversation last night when I ran into somebody when I was on my way to the Grizz fan pod. They're saying the same thing. Mariners just cannot figure it out.
And I'm coming around to this a little bit. When these four teams got to the league championship series, I was kind of down on it. I wanted some new blood. I wanted to see the Rays or the Brewers or the Chicago White Sox in there.
Sure.
I was kind of like, oh, man, I can't believe we're getting these four teams. Kind of coming around to it now. I mean, Braves, Dodgers, two of the great franchises in all of baseball history. Astros, Red Sox, I mean, same thing, not the Astros so much, but teams that have been really good recently, getting to see them in the playoffs. I'm kind of coming around to liking that a little bit more.
No question. Andrew Houghton joining me here, Colter Nuanez. It's Nuanez Now. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to flip the order up a little bit because we want to highlight some of our outstanding performances from across the state this last weekend. So we're going to dive into our Treasure State Stars, and then we'll come back around to our conversation about the Big Sky Conference, specifically my Big Sky Conference power rankings for the current week, as we're about towards the midpoint of the Big Sky Conference season. Treasure State Stars, by the way, a lot of this is football-oriented because there's just so many regular season events for like volleyball and soccer and cross-country that sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to parse through all of the results and stuff like that. So that's not to make an excuse. We will be having full-fledged coverage of all the postseasons for all of the fall sports, whether it's cross-country or boys or girls soccer, as well as, of course, football, volleyball. So stay tuned for all of that. That'll be very fun for us. But just a football-heavy Treasure State Stars today, I guess, is all that I'm saying. So our Treasure State Star, number one, he's Cade Holland. He had 3 total touchdowns. That's Helena High. They stayed hot, 42-7 over Missoula Big Sky. It's 3 wins in a row for the Bengals. Bengals were out to a good start. They lost a couple, and now they've ascended back into the number 3 position in this week's Treasure State Media Poll, thanks in part to Cade Holland and his 3 total touchdowns to help the Bengals pass Missoula Big Sky. Treasure State Star number 2, Jake Casagranda. What a great name. Love it. He's also, I believe, an outstanding baseball player. That name is pretty, I should say common, but there's been some Casagrandas at Bozeman for a little while now. I remember writing about those that last name in the newspaper. But Bozeman High beats Bozeman Gallatin 38-35, and Casagranda, he's the quarterback. He threw 3 touchdowns, including 2 to Jackson Cotton. Also, Luke Smith scored 3 touchdowns, including a 53-yard fumble return for a touchdown. So Jay Casagranda and his Bozeman High teammates, Treasure State Star number 2. Treasure State Star number 3, his 3rd appearance on this list. This kid, he's one of those interesting ones where he's a really good athlete, and I think that he could maybe go do track in college, maybe by throwing the javelin. He's also one of the best quarterbacks in the state of Montana. Unfortunately for him, there's a couple other quarterbacks in the state of Montana that have gobbled up those in-state scholarships for that usually the Cats and the Grizz dole out. Usually 1 or 2 quarterbacks from the state of Montana gets an opportunity to play that position at the college level. All that to say is I think Isaiah Clonch from Billings West is going to have a decision to make, because I do think that if he wanted to pursue javelin at the collegiate level, I think he could definitely do that. But I also think that he's a good quarterback, and I think he could play in the Frontier Conference, I think. And if he kept getting better, I don't know. I don't know what his ceiling is, but he's having a great year leading Billings West. And he tore it up again on Friday, as Billings West rolled past Great Falls CMR 49-20. Clonch, the senior quarterback, threw 4 touchdown passes, including 2 to Taco Dowler. Taco Dowler, by the way, a future Bobcat. So Isaiah Clonch, our Treasure State Star number 4. Treasure State Star number 5 is the entire Fergus Eagles team. Lewistown, They went to Billings Central and they won against the number 2 team in Class A, 21-14. That is the first win by the Golden Eagles over the Rams in 35, count them, 35 years. Lewistown has great sports tradition in certain sports, particularly volleyball, one of the best volleyball programs in the state. And they've had some success in other sports. They've had a hard time getting it going in football. Well, they got it going now. They're going to be a top 5 team this week in whatever poll there is about Class A, because the Eagles are 6-1, including 3-0 in their conference, and a win over the number 2 team in the state, nothing to sneeze at. Treasure State star number 6, Tyson Rostad. I've lost count. I got to take my shoes off to count this high. Guy's been on the list pretty much every week. He's a future Grizz, and he is ripping it up for the Hamilton Bronx. Rostad threw 5 touchdowns, and also ran for a 6th touchdown. 12 for 15 for 324 yards. That's pretty good. 12 completions for 324 yards. Scoring strikes of 55 and 57 yards to Eli Taylor. He also threw touchdowns to Liam O'Connell, Tim Zonder, and Lucas Lant. So Tyson Rostad helps the Hamilton Bronx move to 7-0 and the number 1 team in Class A. Treasure State star number 7, Cody Schweikert. He tossed a couple touchdown passes and also ran for a 3rd. Columbia Falls takes down number 5, Whitefish, 35-19. Columbia Falls now 5-1. The Bulldogs 7-1. That was their first loss for Whitefish, so that's an impressive win by Cody Schweikert and the Columbia Falls squad. Columbia Falls is a team to be reckoned with. I think they actually have a chance to come out of that Northwest and make some noise in the playoffs. Several good teams up there at the Class A level. Columbia Falls, Whitefish, Polson, they're all offensively explosive and all having good years so far. So in Class A, it's sort of rotated between the East, the West, but the Northwest hasn't really had a piece of the pie since Whitefish's last little good run about 7-8 years ago. So we will see if the Northwest can send some teams to the playoffs that can contribute to maybe shaking things up a little bit at the Class A level. Our next Treasure State star, Rex Williamson from Malta. He rushed for 237 yards and scored a pair of touchdowns. Malta remains undefeated with a 37-6 win over Glasgow. That's number 5 versus number 6 in the Class B ranks, but Malta's the one that stays undefeated. Williamson helped hand Glasgow their first loss of the season. With those 237 yards, he had scoring runs of 50 and 14 yards. So Rex Williamson, Treasure State star. And our last Treasure State star is Blake Shoup from Florence Carleton. He caught 3 of Pat Duchesne's 5 total touchdowns. Duchesne threw 4 touchdowns and ran for a 5th, but 3 of those touchdown passes went to Blake Shoup. And the Florence Falcons, 7 in a row. They're 7-0. They're in sole possession of the Western B, and they are the number 1 team in Class B after a 54-7 win over Whitehall. So there you go. Treasure State Stars is presented by Parkside Credit Union of Missoula. Whether you're looking for some financing for a car, maybe a home remodel, home equity loan, whatever loan you're looking for, Parkside Credit Union in Missoula is your place to go, because Parkside Credit Union, they love to say yes. They also love supporting the youth of our communities and all of the Treasure State Stars that we highlight each Tuesday here on Nuanez Now. It is ESPN Radio. You are watching on SWX Montana Television. I am Coulter Nuanez. We're going to take a break and come back and talk all things Big Sky Conference, give you our Big Sky Conference power rankings, and also continue our conversation about Montana, Montana State, the rest of the Treasure State. Keep it right here, ESPN Missoula. Hey, it's Coulter Nuanez from Nuanez Now. I'm here with Brent Wahlberg of the Wahlberg team at Windermere Real Estate. And Brent, you guys have been the official realtors of Grizz Athletics for quite some time. What most do you like about supporting the Grizz in Missoula?
Born and raised here in Missoula. I grew up 2 blocks off campus. A lot of us Montana kids were growing up on weekends in the fall. You're out in the woods hunting. I was sitting in Dorm Blazer and then Washington Grizzly Stadium watching the Grizz. I grew up with Grizz in my blood. It's just a wonderful part of our community and happy to be a part of it.
Give the Wahlberg team a call today, 529-4663.
Open your new Stockman Bank account anytime, anywhere with online account opening. Now, you can open an account in minutes on your laptop, tablet, or mobile phone. It's convenient, simple, and secure. Open your new account today at stockmanbank.com. Then, add our online and mobile banking services so you can manage your money when, where, and how you want. Stockman Bank, Montana's brand of banking. Member FDIC.
The world of real estate is always evolving. That's more true now than ever. If you are a longtime Missoulian that is looking to upgrade or downsize, it might be the best time yet to sell. If you're in the position to buy something new, today might be the best time to buy. And no matter what questions you have when it comes to residential or commercial real estate, Mike Nugent and the professionals at Berkshire Hathaway in Missoula have your answers. To find out what Mike can do for you, give him a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
It's time again for a customer favorite, Florence Coffee's Pet Costume Contest. Now, through Friday, October 29th, dress up your pet and come to any Florence Coffee location after the morning rush. Your barista will take a picture and post it on our Facebook page. People vote with likes, and the prizes are big. For more information, go to any location or FlorenceCoffeeCo.com.
Under the big sky, Florence Coffee Company.
Football is back, and Nuanez now has everything you need to know about the weekend that was for the Grizzlies, the Bobcats, around the Big Sky Conference, and around the Treasure State in prep ranks too. Join Coulter Nuanez, Riley Corcoran, and other contributing guests for the first hour of each Monday's Nuanez Now for compelling analysis, interesting information, interviews, and more. The Montana Football Hour, the first hour of each Monday's Nuanez Now, beginning at 4 p.m. on 102.9 ESPN Missoula and statewide on SWX Montana Television. Presented by Brett's RV and Marine.
Missoula has always held a wonderful reputation as a runner's haven, a place where those who like to jog along the river and those that like to bound around the trails thrive. From the dedicated weekend warriors of our Montana communities to the exceptional college and high school running talents from across the Treasure State, many of the best athletes are the runners in and around Western Montana. Tune into Nuanez Now, twice a month for River City Runners, a local segment about the Montana running community. River City Runners is proudly presented by Zootown Sports Cards.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Set them up and the Spartans will knock them down. That's been the case for almost 2 full seasons at Missoula Sentinel. Hello, I am Coulter Nuanez. Top-ranked Sentinel Spartans continued their quest for a second consecutive Class AA state championship. Yet another statement win on Friday night. Sentinel won for the 7th straight time this fall, including the 5th time against a ranked team alone this season with a 32-0 win over number 3 Helena Capital. That marks the 17th straight victory dating back to the beginning of last season for the Spartans. Adam Jones rushed for 3 touchdowns and Zach Cruz threw a 4th to senior Easton Ledbetter as Sentinel secured top seed in the West with 1 game remaining in the regular season. Helena High won for the 3rd week in a row to move back into the top 3 in the Treasure State media poll by dispatching Missoula Big Sky 42-7. Kate Holland scored 3 total touchdowns as the Bengals moved to 6-2 overall, dropping Big Sky to 2-6. After an 0-4 start, Great Falls High continued its late surge, winning for the 4th week in a row by getting past Billings Senior 23-7. That moves the Bison to 4-2 in Eastern AA play, while dropping the Bronx to 3-5 overall. And finally, Billings West kept pace, rolling to a 49-20 win over number 5 Great Falls CMR behind a pair of touchdown catches. Future Bobcat Taco Dowler. West is now 6-0 in Eastern AA play and 7-1 overall, while the Rustlers are 5-3 after their 2nd straight loss.
This ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Selway Armory. Well, Lindsey Buckingham, little Fleetwood Mac bringing you back here on a Tuesday. Love me some Lindsey Buckingham, picking that acoustic guitar. Fleetwood Mac, one of the greatest. Love them. One of the all-time great bands. Hope you enjoy our eclectic music collection here at Nuanez Now. It's one of my favorite parts about the show. Welcome back in. It's ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. I'm Coulter Nuanez. Bring now Andrew Houghton, our producer here at Nuanez Now, as well as contributing writer, SkylineSportsMT.com, and man of many trades here at Missoula Broadcasting Company. Andrew, before we start talking more about Big Sky Conference football, have you seen Jasper Rinalda? Rinalda, I believe, is his last name. He is a true freshman from Montana State who stands, 7'4".
No, where's he from?
He is from Corvallis, Oregon. Well, so he went to high school in Corvallis, Oregon. His parents, particularly his father, is from the Netherlands. So his father, though, then played at Oregon State and then I believe just lived in Corvallis after college. But then this kid went to high school in Corvallis, but then did a postgraduate year at the Donner Academy in the Netherlands. And that's how Montana State initially found him. He basically went to a prep school, but abroad, internationally. And Montana State, famously, their associate head coach is Chris Haslam, who was a great player at Wyoming, but he is from the United Kingdom. He was the head coach of the UK U18 team for several years. So Montana State's had quite a few guys, actually, from Great Britain. Until they got Harold Frey from Oslo, Norway. So they have that sort of Western European corridor, some of the maybe like you think of European basketball, I think of Italy and Spain and Greece, not necessarily Netherlands and Norway, but they have sort of that Scandinavian area on lock. But if you've ever seen Chris Haslam in person, Chris Haslam is one of the biggest men I've ever met. And I saw a picture of Jasper Ronaldo next to Chris Haslam, and it is silly because Chris Haslam is a full 6'11". I'm not even going to say how much he weighs. He's a gigantic man. And Ronaldo's like a whole head taller than them. This got brought to my attention because I was looking on social media, and there's a picture of Xavier Bishop, Montana State point guard, who is famously 5'8", like on a good day maybe, and Jasper Ronaldo sitting next to each other. And then they had sort of like the here and now versus Manute Bol and Muggsy Bogues when they played for the Washington Bullets. Usually I think that kind of stuff's corny. This is hilarious because it's actually like almost the same. Regardless, there's your tidbit for the day. The Bobcats have a true freshman center who is 7'4". I can't imagine what his prospects might be. You just assume the guy that's 7'4", if they could play at all, would be not in the Big Sky Conference. But maybe the connection is just the connection, and maybe I don't know. But he is certainly the biggest person I've ever seen in real life, and he will definitely be the tallest basketball player. I think it's safe to say he's the tallest guy in the history of the Big Sky Conference.
A little bit of basketball talk on Nuanez now today. I love it.
I know.
We're getting a little chill in the air. Thoughts starting to turn towards the gyms, the squeaking of sneakers, the bouncing of basketballs. Just had to bring in a little hoops talk, didn't you?
Had to, man. I submitted preseason polls for the women and men's side. I'm sure you probably received those polls as well. So, yeah, I submitted those yesterday. So maybe we'll break those down here in a little while. Actually, that'd be fun to do with maybe Sean Rainey, who, by the way, Sean's not going to be able to join us this week. I know you guys have gotten used to hearing from Sean on Wednesdays, but Sean has a ton going on. He's trying to run all over town and shoot all these high school soccer matches. So Sean will be back next week, but tomorrow's lead guest will be Brooks Nuanez from SkylineSportsMT.com. So we'll talk some NFL and, of course, some Big Sky Conference stuff as well. So stay tuned for that. Time now for Around the Big Sky, presented in part by Skyline Sports. Go check out SkylineSportsMT.com. Skyline Sports, every day, every season. It's your one-stop shop for all things Big Sky Conference, whether it's podcasts, analysis, news, features, or photos. Skyline Sports got you covered. Go check out SkylineSportsMT.com. We lead our Big Sky Conference conversation with quite a thing that happened in Cheney, Washington on Saturday. We had the game up on the live stream because I usually like to put the other game that's going. You know, if Montana State's playing the same time, I put the Cat game on if I'm at the Grizz game. I put the Grizz game on if I'm at the Cat game. The Bobcats had played the night before against Weber State, so during the Grizz game against Sac State, I put the Eastern game on just to glance at the score from time to time. Well, the score changed every time I looked at the screen because Eastern Washington just had this unbelievable onslaught, a program record 29 points in the first quarter alone. Eric Berrier threw 4 touchdowns in the first quarter alone. Eric Berrier had 600 yards passing and 7 touchdowns by the end of the third quarter, and Eastern Washington had 64 points going in the final frame. Aaron Best calls off the Dogs, so to speak, but he already had 64. They scored one more. It's 71-21. Eric Berrier is ridiculous. His numbers are out of this world, and I couldn't believe the performance because Eastern's good, but you're not supposed to beat your rival by 50, especially when they score 3 times.
you're not supposed to beat any other team at this level by 50 points. I mean, if we're speaking about it honestly, you're just not. And that's as much on Idaho as it is. I mean, it's not on Eastern Washington at all. Eastern Washington's offense is built for doing that. Like, there's no... he did take Eric Barrier out late, took the starters out late. Of course you do that. But there's no reason for you to stop running your stuff if you're playing Division I college football late in the game. Just a mind-bending score. I mean, I think that both of us before the game would have taken Eastern Washington by, 30 points probably.
Probably, yeah.
But to see something like that where you score 3 touchdowns and you still lose by 50 is shocking. And I think the thing with Eastern Washington, if I can get off on a little tangent about Eastern Washington here, Eastern Washington does that to teams. I mean, that's what if you want to be skeptical about Eastern Washington, you say that's what Eastern Washington's offense is built to do. It's built to hang 60 or 70 points on teams that can't hang with them.
Right.
Because if you can't hang with Eastern Washington, Eric Barrier's hitting a 50-yard touchdown pass on every drive.
That's what's so crazy is that you could say on one hand, Montana, their defense got exposed more than it has all year when they gave up 34 points. On the other hand, you could say that's as good as you can play against the Eastern Washington defense if you're committed to sending pressure like Montana, because actually giving up 35 when the dude actually can throw 7 or 8 touchdowns is you're actually doing about twice as good as your peer opponents, right?
No doubt, and that's what I was going to bring up that game talking about Eastern Washington. I mean, the knock on Eastern Washington is like, can you do that against a good defense who's going to win one-on-one with your guys? Sometimes they're going to bring pressure. They're going to force you to change up a little bit, and that's what I think was my biggest takeaway about, we don't want to talk about this game too much because we've talked about it for hours already on this show. That was my biggest takeaway from Eastern Washington's win over Montana, because they were able to look like Eastern Washington for, a fair part of that game, right at the very start. And then, of course, the fourth quarter, they looked like they were playing Idaho because he was hitting 50-yarders every possession.
Nuanez now, ESPN Radio, SWX Montana Television. Andrew Houghton joining me, Colter Nuanez, here in studio. He's on the other side of the glass. If you're wondering why I'm sitting on my not normal side of the glass, it's because I like to look at the people I'm talking to. But wouldn't be nearly as fun if Andrew was just staring at the back of my head. Andrew, Eastern's averaging 54 points per game at this exact moment. Eric Barrier, his numbers are stupid. He has a passer rating of 191. I think that perfect is like 194 in college football. I mean, he's into the stratosphere of being nearly perfect. He's completing 69.2% of his passes, and it's not as if he's throwing 14 times a game. No, he's thrown 280 times. He's 194 for 280. He's got 3,067 passing yards. This is 7 games and 28 touchdowns. So his average game, Eric Barrier's average game, is 23 completed passes for 439 yards and 4 touchdowns per game. That's his average game. If by chance, and here's the other thing, is Aaron Best knows, Eastern Washington head coach knows, he has adamantly proclaimed that Eric Barrier is the best player in the country every single time he addresses the media. He's so enthusiastic about it, he pounds the table. It's not like the symbolic pounding on the table. Aaron Best actually pounds on the table. This is the best player in the FCS every single time he gets in front of a camera for a press conference. And he's not wrong. But that said, he wants to affirm that to everybody in the country.
Which I think is a great attitude.
It's an absolutely great attitude, and it fits so well in the modern day. Eastern has a 3-game stretch that's a powerhouse stretch coming up. Everybody thinks they're the front runner in the Big Sky. They are, but they have to prove it now because they got Weber State coming to town. They got Montana State coming to town. They got to go to Davis, and then they got to go to Portland State. So this is not an easy schedule down the stretch. I would actually venture to say that is 4 of the 6 or 7 best teams in the league to finish the season. So, that said, though, if and when Aaron Best smells blood, they're going to continue to lighten it up. I don't know if it's even possible to throw over 600 yards against Weber State. I really don't think it's possible to score 70 on Montana State. We'll see. But what I'm getting at, though, is if Barrier continued this pace, what is the ceiling in terms of national exposure? Because the dude is going to run away with Big Sky Conference Offensive Player of the Year. He's going to run away with the Walter Payton Award. If they coincide, he throws for 430 yards a game and throws 50 touchdowns, and they go undefeated, he's running away with the Walter Payton Award. Could this guy sneak in the Heisman conversation?
This was what I was going to ask you. Is Eric Berry going to...
That's ridiculous hyperbole.
Right. But no, here's the thing. If there was an FCS player who was ever going to sneak into the Heisman conversation to get votes for the Heisman, it would be a season that looks exactly like this one.
Yes. Yes, it's absolutely true.
He's going to win the Walter Payton by a ridiculous margin. I saw a tweet this weekend. Southeastern Louisiana has a great quarterback,
Cole Kelly.
He's putting up numbers down there.
Great numbers. He's also a hot NFL prospect because he's left-handed, which actually hurts him, I think, at the NFL level.
Yep.
But he's 6'7", and he can run. And he's got pedigree, too, because he started his career at Arkansas.
He's a great player, no doubt.
Good player. He won the Payton Award in the spring, right?
Yes, with Barrier second. I saw a tweet from Southeastern Louisiana this weekend saying, Cole Kelly, Walter Payton Award candidate, ranks in the top in every passing category. And it was completion percentage, parentheses, first. And then every other stat, it was parentheses, second. Touchdowns, yards, like rushing yards by a quarterback, whatever. Big plays, second, parentheses. And you're like, okay, well, we know who's first in all those categories. I don't think it's going to be a close race for the Payton. I would love to see him, and all it takes is one mention by, like Bruce Feldman writing a column on The Athletic, somebody writing a column on ESPN.com, being like, man, what about Eric Berrier? Could he get votes for a Heisman? And that would raise it to such a different level than what we're talking about right now. But like I said, I think that if you were drawing up a campaign that would get an FCS player attention like that, it would be exactly this one. And we know that Aaron Best is going to keep the pedal to the metal with that offense. I think in part because he did finish second in the Walter Payton voting in the spring. He's trying to reestablish that program a little bit as one of the top programs in the country. And of course it helps when people are talking about your quarterback as a potential Heisman vote getter.
This is where the Big Sky misses Jeff Choate. Because if Berrier lit up Montana State, then Choate would tell Feldman about him, because he would use it not only as a way to promote the league, but also a way to give himself an out. Like, hey, Bruce Feldman, write a story about this guy so that everybody knows how good he is in case they slay Montana State. That's complete speculation, but it is true because Choate was good for the league in that element, getting him on the national platform.
Did you see Bruce Feldman's column today about potential replacements for Nick Rolovich at Washington State?
Of course, Jay Hill and Jeff Choate's names are on there. Why wouldn't they be?
Of course.
Okay, we're not going to talk anything about the Nick Rolovich situation in Washington State because I know you're not here for that. You can get that from all the talking heads. And I'm not going to give you an opinion on where I stand on what happened there in Pullman, other than what a sign of the bizarre time that we live in, because what a hill to die on, man. I just, the fact that it reached the point that it did is mind-blowing to me. Regardless of which side you're on, I think it's stupid that we have sides, but regardless, I couldn't believe that that's the situation that it ended up in, but Nick Rolovich out at Washington State, so we'll see, because that'll be a job with a lot of familiar names from this region and with Big Sky Conference ties involved for who could potentially replace. Let's talk a little Big Sky Conference power rankings. We've been unbelievably busy here. We have shifted our content model at Skyline Sports a little bit. We've been doing a lot more multimedia. We're still doing a lot of writing. I appreciate Andrew and Tom Stuber and all the guys I got helping out for contributing. Of course, our awesome photographers as well. But I used to do a Wednesday deal where I had my Big Sky Conference power rankings in the written word, and I just haven't been able to carve out the time because it does take quite a while to pound all that stuff out. But now, here on Nuanez Now, duration of the stretch run here in Big Sky Conference play, we're going to continue to do, or I guess start today and then continue throughout the rest of the fall to give you our Big Sky Conference power rankings each week here on the show. So, my Big Sky Conference power rankings right now, as they stand, I'm just going to go I give you my top 7 because I think that those are the ones that really have. I guess here's what I'll do, actually. I'm going to give you my bottom 5 because I think that there's not much argument Unless it's like the ordering of the bottom 5. But if you're 9 through 13, who really cares? You're at the bottom of the league.
I would say bottom 6 here, looking at your list.
Okay, so but I think that there's a tier here. So
okay, give me your take on that. Let's
okay. So my bottom tier is Northern Colorado, Southern Utah, and Cal Poly. I don't think any of those 3 teams can beat any team in the league except for each other. I don't. If there was, I have Cal Poly at 11 though, ahead of Southern Utah and Northern Colorado, because I really don't think Southern Utah and Northern Colorado could beat any teams. I'd say Cal Poly would beat both of those teams. I also think Cal Poly has a chance to maybe beat a team that they're not quote unquote supposed to beat, because I think they have a really good coaching staff. So, but I mean, I just think those 3 teams are definitively the 3 teams that are the least competitive in the league this year. You agree?
No argument. Yeah.
Okay. Then I got my next tier would be Idaho at 10, Idaho State at 9, and Northern Arizona at 8. I think all 3 of those teams would be favored, if not heavily favored, against the bottom 3 teams. I actually think Idaho State is better than Northern Arizona, but that hasn't been the case because Idaho State's 1-5 and Northern Arizona's 3-3. Even though I think that that Idaho State has better talent, but
Northern Arizona destroyed Idaho State, so yeah.
Northern Arizona destroyed Idaho State in Flagstaff, so that's what exactly. The reason I got the Vandals at 10, I actually think talent-wise Idaho should be like 7 or 8, but they're not. They're at 10 on my list because that's what happens when you give up 71 points in a rivalry game. I don't really have any justification. I mean, I think when I watch them, I think that they have a good defensive line. I think they have really good linebackers. I think their offensive line is fine, average to above average. I think they have a couple playmakers on offense. I know their quarterback system's been incredibly in flux, but they continue to be among the most perplexing teams in the league because when you look at them from a man-to-man perspective of who they have on their squad, talent is not their issue in comparison to the bottom tier of the league. I think they do have talent issues compared to the top 5 or 6 teams in the Big Sky, but they shouldn't be where they're at in the league based on purely talent. I don't understand, though, what the missing link is because a tease for tomorrow, Mike Bresky, former Montana defensive coordinator, current Idaho defensive coordinator. He's coming on the show, partly to talk about the matchup between Montana and Idaho this upcoming Saturday in Moscow, and partially to talk about his memories from the 2001 National Championship team that he was a part of. Well, Mike Bresky's a great coach. I've been around Bresky. My brother played for Bresky. Like, Bresky's a really good coach, man. Luther Ellis played in the NFL for, like, my whole life and has been the D-line coach there at Idaho. I know great player does not necessarily mean great coach, but by all accounts, he's a good coach. I mean, he's put multiple guys in the NFL. And Vernon Smith played corner at Montana. He's a good secondary coach. They have good coaches. Like I know most of the guys on that staff, or at least know guys that know them. And so I don't know. There's definitely a disconnect there at Idaho. Would you disagree with any of that second tier, or I guess second from the bottom tier in the Big Sky?
No, and I think that's been the story for Idaho. I mean, since they came back into the Big Sky Conference, they've had talent. I mean, like you said, they've had a good defensive line since they came back into the Big Sky Conference. They've had good linebackers. I mean, they had Caden Ellis was the one who got drafted.
Caden Ellis, actually, I believe, starts for the Saints right now, or at least gets a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
Christian Ellis is on a taxi squad somewhere. He's on a practice squad with somebody, so he's in the NFL as well.
But they just have never, ever been relevant in the 3 or 4 years that they've come back to the Big Sky. There's just something missing there.
They found their most relevant moments when playing Eastern Washington. And I think that's why the people at Eastern, the usual suspects, as it were, probably took great joy in hanging 71. Because, in Montana, we know all about the vitriol and the Cat Grizz rivalry. But make no mistake, like, Eastern Washington hates Montana and Idaho as much as Montana State hates Montana. You know what I mean? Like, that's a real deal rivalry. Like, Eastern is delighted in beating Idaho and vice versa. I know the Vandals loved beating Eastern the last couple times that they have. So, funny that it's a good rivalry in the league is what I'm saying. All right, my next tier in my Big Sky Conference power rankings includes 3 teams: Portland State, Weber State, and Montana. How did Montana get into the same conversation as Portland State, a team that they beat 48-7 back in the spring? Now, let's be clear. I think if Montana and Portland State played on Saturday, I think Montana would be a 3-touchdown favorite. But how can you be a 3-touchdown favorite if you can't score touchdowns? That's the biggest issue that Montana has right now. Their defense is really good still. I think that their defense is going to have to carry the day, but their offense is not going to have to necessarily win games for them. They're just going to have to, first, not lose games for them. Can't have crucial turnovers in pivotal situations. Can't have crucial penalties that makes you settle for touchdowns instead of field goals. But all that said, I think that Portland State is my number 7 team in my power rankings this week, above all of those bottom tier teams because of Davis Alexander. That's it. That's all. Portland State's found a way to win a couple games. They're 3-3. There's not much for them to play for in terms of national accomplishment, but they could be competitive in the league, and they could definitely beat some teams in this league, especially if Alexander gets hot. Weber, they're messed up with all their injuries. Their offensive line is not what it's supposed to be because they're so hurt. Bronson Barron, even though he looked sort of healthy, he did not look comfortable last week, the quarterback. Josh Davis is definitely out. I'm not a doctor, but that dude's not coming back anytime soon. That was a bad injury that he suffered against the Cats on Friday night. And so Weber, they still have a really good secondary, really good front seven, really good defense. But they have a hard time scoring as well. So it's funny because I think if you gave like Montana or Weber, Portland State's offensive skill players, including Davis Alexander, it solves so many of their problems. But that's sort of the dichotomy here. I don't think Portland State's anything to sniff at on defensively, but Montana and Weber right now have a fundamental issue scoring.
Yeah, agreed. I think I would almost have Portland State almost in a tier of their own there, just sitting in the middle of the conference.
7th alone. Totally.
And that's it. And they're good enough to beat everybody behind them. And, man, I don't know if they could beat any of those top 6 teams. I mean, maybe Weber, like you said, with how beat up they are right now. So maybe
it would be a bad matchup, though, because Jay Hill would do so many things to bracket Davis Alexander. Their secondary is really good, so they'd be baiting him. He does make mistakes because he is kind of a gunslinger. Yeah, no, you're right. I think Portland State is sort of at a tier by themselves, and then I think that maybe actually that next tier is UC Davis, Montana, Weber State all sort of together.
I think that's the way that I would go with it. I mean, and I don't even know. I think I would have Sacramento State, Davis, Montana, Weber State, all 4 together behind the top 2.
And then the top 2, I got Montana State at number 2 and Eastern Washington number 1. If you disagree with that, call us or text us 406-888-1029. I don't really know how you could. Proof's in the pudding right now. Eastern 7-0. They got a win over Montana. Montana State's 6-1. They haven't lost to an FCS squad, and they just beat a ranked Weber State team on the road. So that's my top 2, Eastern Washington, Montana State. I got Sac at 3. I'm actually I'm second-guessing myself here with Davis and Montana because I actually think that
this is the one change that I would make,
Both have issues, and UC Davis's loss to Idaho State is much worse than Montana's loss. Although Montana's loss to Sac State at home does carry some weight. Losing to a 1-win, Idaho State has 1 win. It's over UC Davis. I know it's in Pocatello, but maybe I would flip those. But I think it's a clear-cut top 2, and then I think that. But this is the most interesting part, though, is I think that the Big Sky is going to get 3 or 4 teams in. Riley Corcoran, voice of the Grizz, thinks they're going to get 5. But the tier that includes Sac State, UC Davis, Montana, and Weber State, that's 4 teams, I think, for at least 2, maybe 3 spots. So we'll see. But that tier is going to be very important. Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio. We'll take you home here on a Tuesday back after this.
Are you ready to step up your hair game but just not sure where to go? Well, Compass Barbershop, recently voted one of Missoula's best barbershops, is here for you. For the precision cut you're looking for, you've got to find your way to Compass Barbershop, Missoula's retro barbershop and salon for everyone. It's easy to schedule your appointment online at compassbarber.com. For more details, you can find them on Facebook or Instagram. Find your way to Compass Barbershop, open Monday through Saturday on the Hip Strip at the corner of modern and retro.
Backed by popular demand, Zootown Sports Cards presents the Missoula Sports Card and Collectibles Show. On Saturday, October 20th at the Doubletree Hotel, come check out exceptionally rare and coveted cards and goods from more than 30 vendors from around the state and region. The specialty show lasts from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m., and admission for attendees is free. So come check out the hottest in the memorabilia industry at the Missoula Sports Card and Collectibles Show at the Doubletree, October 23rd, presented by Zootown Sports Cards of Missoula.
Oh, I love family road trips. Wind in my ears.
Good dog.
Treats in my mouth. And peace of mind knowing Les Schwab did our tires, brakes, and alignment. Like Les Schwab, my family's safety is my first priority. Well, that and squeaky toys.
Swing by today and get road trip ready with our always free pre-trip safety check. Les Schwab Tires. Applies to passenger cars, SUVs, and light trucks only. Details at leschwab.com/safety.
We're all looking for ways to go green, and Farmer State Bank has everything you need. Start with free internet banking and bill pay. Download our mobile money app for state-of-the-art banking services on the go. And finally, enroll with Zelle, a fast, safe, and easy way to send money to the people you trust. It's free at Farmer State Bank. Save paper, save energy, and save your precious time. Bank greener at Farmer State Bank. Member FDIC. Terms and conditions apply.
For 4 years running, Coulter Nuanez and the team at ESPN Missoula have captured the E.B. Craney Award for Radio Sports Coverage of the Year. Each Wednesday on Nuanez Now, the featured long-form interview of the week takes center stage. Tune in to Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Missoula or SWX Montana Television to hear the Montana Radio Sportscaster of the Year conduct an in-depth interview with prominent sports figures from around Montana. The ESPN Roundtable during the 5 o'clock hour each Wednesday on Nuanez Now is proudly presented by Paradise Falls.
Do you want to see behind enemy lines? Do you want the scoop from the other side of the clash each week leading up to Saturday's showdowns for the Grizzlies and the Bobcats? Then be sure to tune in to Nuanez Now each Thursday and Friday to hear the coaches who lead the opponents each week for Montana and Montana State. Myself, Coulter Nuanez, will provide weekly in-depth interviews with the men leading whoever the Grizzlies and the Bobcats play each weekend, so be sure to tune in for all the info you desire. The opposing coach interview series is proudly presented by Mike Nugent and Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate.
Nuanez Now on ESPN Radio.
That's right. That's what I do. Come on.
Oh, yeah, a little more Kanye for you here on a Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Thanks for kicking it. Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio. This thing in the show, ton of talk about the Grizz, the Bobcats, the Big Sky Conference. Actually, not very much talk about the Bobcats because they are exactly what they are. It's a hard team to analyze because they've just been so good. They've just been solid. They've answered the bell. They've answered the question. So we're going to continue to hash out more about that team and, of course, Montana and, of course, the rest of the Big Sky Conference. Also, prep football, Treasure State Stars, some free sandwiches, and, of course, Johanse Humphrey as part of our Grizz Greats podcast series. All of that from today's Nuanez Now can be found on the podcast, proudly presented by Blackfoot Communications, the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel, and Sportsbet Montana. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Mike Bresky, Idaho Defensive Coordinator. Alex Eshelman, Brooks Nuanez, everything in between. We'll see you then. Nuanez Now.
Introducing Sportsbet Montana, powered by the Montana Lottery. Join in the excitement of Sportsbet Montana by betting on your favorite sports and teams, both collegiate and professional, including